Hey, this is the Fresh Wave Podcast, Season 4, Episode 20 or 21. Here on the Fresh Wave Podcast, we are talking about relationships, and we have some people on here that have good opinions and thoughts and all sorts of fun stuff here.
Good opinions.
Yippee!
All right.
The Fresh Wave Podcast is for youth, by youth.
And
Maddie.
Here we go. Yeah, so excited that we are here and we get to talk about all variety of topics here on the Fresh Wave Podcast. I need that reverb, Tim.
Oh, wait, hold on. Wait for it. Where's your mic?
It's all good. I am
God.
one or four.
Now say it again.
We talk about a variety of topics here on that Fresh Wave.
Got it.
There we go. And today is nothing less than another great topic to bring to the table of your ears. So here we are with Shannon, Ben, Maddie, Tim behind the desk, and myself. Hello. And
Hi.
we are pumped to talk about relationships. Ayo, let's go. But not just any relationships, specifically romance. So that should be fun. Here we are. The light is green, recording light is on. Let's go. So speaking of relationships, Ben is on a 1-year relationship
Perfect timing.
with his fiance.
Ben, tell us where you're going
This
after
is why
this.
you're here on the show.
Cheesecake Factory. Yeah, of course.
Let's go.
Where else?
And do you get cheesecake?
Yes.
Which
kind
one?
of cheesecake, yeah.
I usually go for the chocolate one. But I might spread my wings tonight. I don't know. We'll see.
Real quick,
We will see.
let's all go around. Best Cheesecake Factory appetizer. Just to break the ice here. Or small plate. There's two options.
Oh,
I've never been to
I-
Cheesecake Factory, so I
I've
can't
been, but
speak
it's
in
been a
on that.
while.
Oh, man.
I only go to Cheesecake Factory for the cheesecake.
Yeah, Tim, hold on. Let me
Tim and I
name
are
one of
about to
the
have the
50
same-
appetizers they have off the top of my head.
Tim and I
Yeah.
are about to have the same answer.
3. Oh,
Bloomin'
okay.
Onion. Sorry, that's a different restaurant.
All right. Is yours a small plate, Tim, or an appetizer?
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
But I know what it is.
Okay. Shall we do 1, 2, 3?
Yeah.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
Korean
Oh.
fried cauliflower.
I was saying cheeseburger egg rolls.
Oh, that's up there, too. Anyway.
I actually have had
Spring
those.
rolls.
I
Is
think
it egg rolls or spring rolls?
Spring rolls.
I have had a cheeseburger roll before there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are good.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah. What was Tim gonna say?
Big
They're
fan.
great to share them with someone you love.
Aw.
Tim was gonna say what?
Korean fried cauliflower.
Korean fried cauliflower. Didn't you say calamari before?
No.
Oh, I swear you said calamari.
Oh, well.
Love is in the air, I suppose, at Cheesecake Factory.
Always.
Well, I think this is a great topic, especially if some of our listeners are in the younger adult years. This is a time where you might be getting into that, or maybe experienced in that, or maybe never doing that again. So, depending on your experiences, you never know. So, yeah, let's get into it. Relationships, romance. I guess one thing to maybe start off is, do we feel like that is still like a very pressured thing in the high school, young adult years to be in a dating relationship?
Well, personally, from like a high school standpoint, I think it definitely is, but I also think the aspect of relationships that's so pushed at our age is just like the intimacy of it. I don't necessarily think it's like the biblical call you have when you're like quote unquote like dating to marry. Like I don't think that that's something that's as desired anymore. I think it's just like that quick like connection that you want to have with someone, which I think is also why people can tend to like jump from person to person because they're just looking for like immediate needs to be fulfilled. So I think in a way, like I have no clue like what it was like for any of you like in high school with that, but for now it's definitely, I almost want to say it's getting worse. Like I think just the desire to have like quick relationships, to go really fast really quickly, like really far really quickly, I think that's something that's still prevalent now.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense, right? If the average like marriage age is much later in life, why would a 15-year-old consider I'm dating to marry?
Right.
Right? Because that's potentially 15 years out. It's like, I got to, so I think it definitely makes that not even on their mind because, obviously 50 years ago, the average age was probably like young 20s.
Right.
But now we're getting closer to 30s for marriage. So for a 14, 15-year-old to have that mindset of I'm dating to marry probably just seems like super far off. So I'm just going to do whatever and not really think about that.
Yeah, I think it's a social status thing. Like when I was in high school, I felt not pressured, I guess, to be in a relationship, but like you see it around you and it's like, oh, I want that. But I can say like when I was in high school, 99, and I'll just say it probably for the majority of people in high school now, like I don't think 99% of people in high school are looking for a relationship for the right reason. I don't think anyone in high school is sitting in class going like, I really, that girl's really cute over there. It'd be really nice to marry her and start a family and, prepare our bloodline just for generations to come and
buy some land together.
Buy dirt, struggle together, eat dinner together. Like, no, like I genuinely don't think 99%.
I just want to build a joint bank account with Susie.
I
Don't
don't
have to
think
file taxes together.
And I don't think they should. I really don't believe high schoolers should, in this day and age at least, just because of how, like you said, marriage ages have changed. I don't know, even in college, like, is it really a high schooler's place to be? I mean, it's perfect if you are. Like, I don't think it's a bad thing to be thinking about, but I don't think a high schooler in this day and age can possibly, like, look at a relationship 1,000% correctly.
Whoa, am I mishearing you, Ben? Are you saying high schoolers should not even really consider dating too much?
I've had this conversation.
Oh, here we go. Open it up.
I mean, I don't know. It's a gray area. In my opinion. Like I know a couple of high school sweethearts, people who've gotten together in high school and gotten married. Now, was that their plan when they first met? I have no idea. It may have been like, okay, like let's get together, let's be friends with benefits, let's do this and that. I don't know, but and it turned into something like marriage. Like something bad,
like marriage.
Yeah. So
civil union.
Yeah.
I mean, my parents and Johnny's parents are both high school sweethearts.
Yeah.
Actually.
But I feel like that was less rare.
That's true. Right? That was years ago.
Yeah, I mean,
like
they got married at what, 22? Probably?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like Maddie's saying now, the whole kind of view on relationships and marriage is completely changing. Like people aren't getting married like they used to. Like marriage rates are going way down. People are more like, oh, let's just move in and like not, join bank accounts. I think is the biggest reason. Everyone's like, oh, we got to sign a prenup. You got to sign a prenup before you get married, stuff like that. I don't know. It's just my opinion that if you were in high school, there's a very small chance that you are looking for a relationship for 100% the right reason. Does that mean that you shouldn't date? I'm not going to just flat out say yes, in my opinion. I don't want to make a generalized statement towards everybody.
Right.
My opinion is probably good for some people, but it might not be good for other people. I don't know. But if I could go back, I wouldn't have dated in high school. I did.
Yeah.
I did learn stuff from it, but if I could go back, I would have just skipped over all of that.
Yeah.
So.
I also think it's kind of like, at what point do you say, like, in high school, like, you're still maturing, like, emotionally and spiritually. So it's like, at what point do you say, well, my heart is ready for this? And, like, I think that I'm ready to, like, pour into someone else emotionally and spiritually, even though I don't feel fully matured. So it's kind of like, at what point would you say I'm ready for that? But also, I think maybe, like, years ago in high school, it's more like, I'm not ready for it, so I won't do it. But I think now it's like, I'm not ready for it, so let me just do something, go halfway with someone. Like, let me not fully commit to the label or commit to all of the, like, emotional attachment, but, like, I can do the physical attachment just because I don't feel emotionally ready. So I think it's less like, I'm going to focus on, like, God for now. I'm going to focus on my own, like, health and my own, like, advancement. And now it's just like, I'll go halfway with someone so I can still focus on the fact that I'm still 17 or 16 and I still have room to grow, but I want this right now. So I'm just going to do it, like, sometimes in a not so great way.
Yeah, I would say the majority of people, like, the reason people would date, I would even say, like, down to middle school, would be just because you find somebody attractive. Like, everybody pretty positive finds somebody attractive within, like, middle school or high school. And your desire is for them to find you attractive back. And then you're like, well, we both mutually think each other are cute, so we might as well date. which like that's not the reason you should go into a relationship. It's just because you have a mutual attraction. Like there's a lot more. But I think that people like with that attraction, they just want companionship and somebody who's like kind of like a safety to have them around.
That is, I think that's very true. Which is just kind of funny if you actually kind of think the deep root level of that. Like, oh, that person's cute. I guess I should probably, date them and just invest my heart and soul in this person because, subjectively, a lot of people think they're attractive. So
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting observation that does definitely tend to be true, especially at a younger age. So let's say somebody is subjectively ready to date. So I think you established some good things here. Is there pressure to date? Should we date? So now let's say someone is in a potential romantic dating relationship. What are some things people should know going into that?
I think that the number one thing is when you're going into a relationship, it needs to be purely selfless. Like you're not going in with the desire that that person's going to serve you. Like you want to go in with a selfless purpose of like, I desire to serve that person the best of my abilities. If you go in with a selfish heart, then it's just going to cause a lot more issues going down the road.
Yeah, and like that, like being selfish part of it is, I think, how a lot of people get involved in these like really messy relationships in the first place. Like when you're selfish about it and you want it to serve you and all of your like quick needs and quick desires, I think that's also where it can end up going wrong.
Yeah, I've always heard it said, like, don't expect your relationship to satisfy your needs, because it's not. Like, a lot of people, I feel, get into relationships because they're lacking something and they have a hole that needs to be filled. And they think getting into a relationship is going to fill that void and fill that hole. And it does for a little bit, and that's cool. And then time goes on, and then those needs aren't being met anymore. So, okay, ditch this person. Let's move on to the next, because it's all about feelings. It's all about how I feel, how this person can make me feel. And when this person can't make me feel this way anymore, then they're no good anymore. So now I have to find someone who can create that spark again and fill that hole again. And it just gets really messy like that. So I don't think that you should date if you're just using that to fill a hole in your heart.
Yeah. I think that comes around to just purpose. So, I mean, think of the majority of the things that you do in life, you do with a purpose. And maybe some of those things you think about, like whether I'm going to college. What's my purpose in college? To get a degree, to get a job in finance, whatever it is. What is my purpose to going to the gym? My purpose in gym is to maybe hit a certain amount of weight on the bench, or I'm trying to be a certain weight, whatever it is. You have purpose in all these things that you do. And I think when it comes to dating, we also have to have that in the back of our mind. Like, what is my purpose in dating? Especially, why am I dating this person? What's my purpose? So I think making sure it is purposeful. And I do think there is a pressure in the Christian community. Like, all right, if you're dating this person, you have to marry them. I don't think that is true. I don't really agree with that. But I do think the purpose of I'm dating this person with the purpose of seeing if this is a good, potential marriage partner for me.
Yeah.
I think that is healthy, and I think that is fine. So I think purpose is a big thing as you go into a relationship, to consider that.
On like the other side of things, like I know we're talking about like the Christian community and when you're dating someone who's Christian, but like what do we think like when people are talking about like being equally yoked? Like that phrase is thrown around a lot, I think. And like in regards to dating, and you're trying like you don't meet them at church, say, like you don't meet them at youth group. This is not like you don't know much about their religion going into it. Like it's the same thing. Like you see them, you think they're cute. Like how would you like decipher that? You're having conversations, maybe you're becoming friends. Like what does being equally yoked mean? And like how extensive should we be like relying on that?
Yeah, I think that if you don't have a relationship with someone who is of the same, like, I wouldn't even just say same, like, faith base as you, but, like, level of faith, I think it adds a lot more complications to the relationship, because ultimately God should be the first in your life. And if the person you're dating is not on the same page with that, that is going to cause a lot of complications, because then they're going to feel like they should be the first in their life, or perhaps, like, maybe their family is first or whatever. So I think it's opening you up to a potential for a lot of complications. I mean, when you're dating somebody or going into marriage, it's not I don't want to say it's like I mean, it is. It's complicated. Like there's so many different aspects that go into it, and you're doing life with another sinner. Like putting two sinful people together, it's going to cause a lot of difficulties. And if you are not rooted in the same like faith-based or have like the same like relationship with God, then it's going to be more difficult.
Yeah, I think the unequally yoked, Tim, you could probably help me out here.
Yep.
Bob talked about a few weeks ago. He said there were couple different examples.
Sermon linked right here.
Sermon
Check it
linked,
out.
sermon check. The first one, obviously dating was a big one. Business was, I think he was kind of arguing, was the main point here, was business relationships.
Yeah.
And then there was a third one. I feel like there were like 3 reasons. Can't remember what the third one was.
I think it was just romantic. I think just regular friendships
okay,
and
yeah,
relationships.
yes, yeah, I
And
think
then
it was
like
just-
business,
Yep.
business and work relationships.
Yeah, so unequally yoked, and you could interpret it in a variety of ways. But in terms of dating relationships, I do think again it comes down to purpose. Like, what is my purpose in life? What is this person's purpose in life? If you have different purposes in life, you're going towards 2 different things. So if my purpose in life is to serve and honor the Lord in every single thing I do, that's first and foremost, and the other person's is not, you'll just constantly, there'll be a tug of war game that you'll play. So you'll be going in 2 different directions, and then you're trying to raise a family in 2 different directions. So I think when it comes to dating, that has to start at dating, not with the, potential. All right, well, we potentially might get there. I might be able to save my boyfriend or girlfriend. I might be able to bring them to church. They're really interested, but you just don't know. So you're kind of starting off dating on the wrong foot. And instead of loving and serving them, you're trying to make them do something that you have no power over. So I think purposeful dating starts actually with that. Like, let's make sure me and the person I'm going to date are on the same road, on the same path. Otherwise, it'll be a lot of tension. It'll be challenging to walk life together if you're going different ways.
If I could quickly interject here, I think
Quickly.
we've been talking a lot about friendships a lot. And if you think about your friendships, like there might be people in your life that look like they could be your friend, but they might have completely different interests and ways of thinking than you, right? So let's take Joe. Joe looks like he's just a dude. He looks like he could be my friend, but Joe thinks completely different than me. I don't go to Joe for advice. Joe has very different interests and stuff than me. I'm not going to be friends with Joe. Take it to a romantic relationship. Just because someone looks, I'm attracted to a person, right? But they're fundamentally, spiritually, they're different than I am, right? We don't think about it that way. Like if I'm not going to be friends with someone who's fundamentally like has a different base spiritually than I do, why am I going to do that with marriage or a dating relationship?
That's a very good point. Can't say I've heard that take before.
Yeah.
Just came out with it.
Well, they're attractive, so anything goes here, essentially.
Yeah, I also think that kind of goes to say, like, when we're talking, like, I've had a conversation with someone the other day, and she was like, well, he doesn't lead me away from God. And I was kind of like, I feel like this almost just feels like a compromise. Like, it's the same thing when you're talking about, like, well, he'll go to church with me, or, like, he believes in God, and then you're kind of just like, I feel like this, like, whole halfway thing, like, when we're talking about being unequally yoked or equally yoked, it's not just, like, going in the same direction, it's also kind of going at the same speed. So I feel like it also has to do with, do you have the same, like, drive for God? Like, it's not just, like, if you're full all in for your faith and he's just, like, he doesn't lead you away from God. And then it's like, well, you're not necessarily being pushed towards what you want to be pushed towards. And if we're called to, like, strive for holiness and strive for Jesus, you're not necessarily doing that with that person. Like, I think that's also, like, the same speed you're going with them as well.
Yeah, I think like iron sharpens iron comes to mind. Like, you want to kind of challenge each other, but in a good way. Like, you should both have that equally. And I mean, my opinion is that my husband should, like, I want him to lead me. He's pretty cool.
Nice camera change. I saw that.
And he does lead me really well. But I have also, I have friends who are not married to believers. And I have this one friend she's been married for, I don't know, 40 something years, but her husband's not a believer. And it's been, like, when she goes through difficulties and trials, she has the hope and she has a foundation and she knows where to go to and she knows, like, I guess, where to find her comfort and her security, but her husband doesn't have that. And it's been kind of difficult for them as they're going through these things. And she's a lot more content knowing that God's in control and he's, would potentially be grasping at straws or very discontent with a potential situation he's been placed in. So,
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Ooh, yeah.
So this is something that I've seen, I think, a couple of times in our personal youth group. And I think there might be a person at this table who might have some experience in this particular thing. What if you're in a relationship and you both may be pursuing God, but you're pursuing them differently in terms of denomination, or you get what I'm getting at here, Ben?
Called out. Yeah. It gets kind of tricky. Like I don't always just jump the ship and say break up. Like I think it depends on what's happening, but black and white answer is you should be dating someone, preparing to get married to someone who loves Jesus and loves God more than they love you. And they prioritize God and they prioritize a relationship with Christ more than they prioritize you and stuff like that. And yeah, it gets tricky. I guess the biggest, when it comes to denominations, I guess the biggest example I give is raising kids. I'm like, you're walking on this two different paths. Like I'll tell people, you have one foot in your relationship and you have one foot with God. And, right now those paths are very, very close together and it's okay. But as you grow and grow and grow, it's gonna spread out. And pretty soon your legs are going to be stretched. Like you're either going to have to choose God or you're going to choose your relationship because they're not going towards the same exact thing. Yeah. And, like raising kids, like I can't imagine raising my child with somebody who does not hold the same beliefs as I do. Cause like what is that doing? How is that helping your child? Like you two would know obviously a lot better than me, but like, let's say one of you had completely different ideas about like what church your kid should go to. Like how I can't imagine that being a healthy environment religiously and spiritually for your kid to grow up in. Like you are doing your child a disservice in my opinion if you were not raising your child with the same exact standard as your spouse in terms of spirituality, relationship with God. This is what we do, this is how we worship. And like, yeah, if they want to spread their wings and check different churches out when they get older, like perfect. But, I think biblically as parents, and again, you guys would know better than I do, it is our duty to evenly yoked raise our children to, have a relationship with Jesus and make Jesus a priority. And I just can't physically see that going the best it possibly can with somebody who believes in a different Jesus than you do. That's usually what my spiel is.
Yeah, I don't think there's I feel like a lot of the answers are here. Can be like, well, more often than not. So to Tim's question, I would say there has to be a core belief set you would agree upon. Like there's got to, Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus is the Son of God. Sorry, inside joke. But it's not a joke. Jesus is the Son of God. The word of the Lord is inerrant, infallible, God's holy word. Salvation is by grace through faith alone. Like there's some core beliefs I think you have to agree upon. And then when it comes to denominations, there are Baptist goers that I don't think are saved. Mm-hmm. There are Catholic goers I don't think are saved. There are Presbyterian goers that I don't think are saved. So I think to say, Baptists shouldn't date a Presbyterian. Like my mom was raised Presbyterian. My dad was raised Southern Baptist. Very different. But, there's a lot of core theological doctrines they agreed upon. But I do think it's something you should definitely talk through if they are coming from a different background of a church, because that church might believe and interpret things differently and focus on different things, like I think kind of what you were saying on. Yeah. So I don't think it's so set in stone, but I think it's definitely something you should truly see. Is that person saved? Is that person truly following the Lord? Yeah,
and to a point that you brought up, Maddie, like your friend, I guess, was it your friend who you said? Yeah. Oh, my significant other doesn't make me feel less close to God, but like I personally, like, if you're in a relationship, because marriage is supposed to mirror Christ's relationship with us. Like, that is the most, as close as it gets depiction in this world as it gets to that's what marriage is supposed to be. So if your relationship and future marriage, and marriage isn't, and if you're already in marriage, it gets a little trickier. But if you're dating and your relationship is not leading both of you closer to God, like, and yeah, there's going to be up and downs and stuff like that, but grand scheme of things, overall picture, if you were not feeling the Lord's presence, or you are not growing closer to God, and I would even argue even if they're not making me feel farther away from God, but especially if they are making you feel farther away from God. Like, I've been in relationships where it's like, I'll go to church on Sunday, I'll feel great, I'll be on a spiritual high, cool, and then I'm with my girlfriend and it's like, God's just not even in my head. I don't think that's right. Like, I really don't think that's how it should be. I think, like, God should be the center of your relationship, and if he's not, like, black and white, like, you should not be in that relationship.
Here's a clear-cut answer I will give. If you are a follower of Jesus and you are praying for the salvation of your significant other, I don't think you should be in that relationship.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You could still pray for them, and you should, but I don't think you should be in a relationship with them.
yeah, and a lot of people will put themselves into that trap of like, I'm going to take my girlfriend or boyfriend to church, it's great. Like, that's awesome. And that's awesome that you're trying to lead this person to the Lord, but in my opinion, to do that within the frame of a relationship, I don't think is appropriate. Like, okay, cool, if you're friends, cool, but to use that as an excuse to not leave somebody because now if I leave them, they're not going to go to church, and like, what am I going to tell God in prayer? Like, I broke up with them, so now they're not going to go to church anymore. Like, you're just making excuses at that point.
Yeah,
because that's not your job. It's not our job to save people. That's God's job. You can pray about it. You can plant seeds and stuff like that. But if you're putting the pressure of saving your significant other on you, like Johnny said, like, that is not something you should be getting involved in. I think that's going to hurt the person you're dating, and that's going to ultimately hurt you too.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that if, like, we're called to go out and make disciples, so we're called to go out and spread God's word, but our job is not to change their hearts. That is God's job only. Yeah. And we don't know, like, how they're going to receive, the gospel message. That's not up to us. That's up to the Lord. And if we put that on ourselves, then that's just putting a completely wrong expectation on us, and that's like putting us in front of God. Like, I actually know somebody personally who was dating somebody for a while, and she really started to take her relationship with the Lord very seriously, and she ended up breaking up with her boyfriend, and she said, "I'm sorry, like, unless you," and he was like, "Oh, no, I'm a Christian. She was like, "No, until I see that you're actually taking it seriously, like, we can't be together." And it was a really difficult time for them, but they're married now, and he ended up I guess coming around and making that decision, and now they're married and have a wonderful relationship. But, like, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think that would not have occurred if they remained together, because you were saying, no, our relationship is more important than your relationship with the Lord.
Yeah. I also think that's also a matter of, like, when you're protecting your heart and your values, and just, like, strengthening ourselves, like, in God, and making sure that we're producing all the right fruit. And kind of along with that, I kind of wanted to ask about, like, kind of shift gears into, like, when we're talking about, like, boundaries, like protecting our heart, also protecting ourselves physically, and just, like, what should we be asking, like, from our partner? Like, what should we be asking for in our relationships? How do we know, like, where we're setting boundaries? Like, is this a common thing? Is this, like, how do we know, like, how we're supposed to be acting in these relationships?
Good question. So let's get to some scripture for, I think, part of your question.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a Christian dating marriage talk without 1 Corinthians 13. Just impossible. So for 1 Corinthians 13 says this, verse 4, "Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. So something, I think we might have done this like a month ago, actually, at youth group, and one of our world partners does this with a girls group. I think is actually a really healthy practice, even like, even to do while you're married, like just a little checkup on yourself or your partner. So all you do is you read this verse again, and instead of saying love, you say the person's name, which I think is really great. So what was the name you used before, Tim? Joe?
Yes, Joe.
All right, so Joe is patient and kind. So then you would check, is Joe patient and kind? Yeah, okay. Joe does not envy or boast. Joe is not arrogant or rude. Joe does not insist on his own way. Joe is not irritable or resentful. Joe does not rejoice at wrongdoing. Joe rejoices with the truth. Joe bears all things. Joe believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. So if you have to stop and say, oh, wait, no, Joe is very arrogant. Actually, Joe is very irritable and resentful. I think those are things you should think about when you're coming to how should you be treated, where even boundaries, within a relationship. Like, you got to be asking these questions. Is Joe patient and kind? Physical boundaries. Is Joe patient and kind towards my heart? So I think, for one, you got to get to Scripture, see what love is actually defined as by our Savior, who loved us first, so we can go and love others. So I think that is a good start for to check in on treating within that relationship.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of times, especially in youth group, you get the how far is too far. And I think that's just the wrong question to be asking. Like, you're trying to push a boundary. I think you just need to, like, if you're asking that, you're trying to get as far as possible without like stepping over. It's like you're teetering on the edge. Like, I think there's some very, very clear, specific boundaries that the Bible says we should remain within. But there's I would just say gray areas. But you never want to like go all the way to the boundary, or what you would think is the boundary, like, because you're ultimately, like, the reason you're doing it is for the wrong reasons. You're doing it for selfish reasons. You're not doing it to love that person better. Like, you can go through a whole dating relationship and just give each other high fives and like have that be your physical boundary, like still have a very great relationship. Like, I think that, yeah, it's
really hard to come back to. Because I know when I was in high school, I was always longing for those parts of relationships that, we should be saving for marriage. And I know my first relationship where that started, where it was kind of like the how far is too far thing. And then I kind of been with that in mind. It's just like, oh, I feel like I can do a little more. I feel like we can do a little more. I feel like we can do a little more. And then you get to the point where it's like, oh, well, there it is. And then where do you go from there, right? And then it just dumps you onto a slippery slope that's really hard to get yourself out of.
Yeah. One of the leaders that I was talking to, like, she's married, and she was talking to me about how, like, if you're asking yourself, like, if this is the line of disobedience, and like you are asking yourself, this person wants to push me this close to the line, like, you're already creating space in your heart and in their heart to lead you into sin. Like, you're already making a pocket in your heart for temptation, because like you have this desire kind of for impurity and this desire to almost go behind God's back in a way. Like, she used the example of like when a kid is like, oh, like, don't tell dad, like, don't let dad find out. And it's like a whole, like, you're trying to almost keep it a secret without recognizing the fact that you're trying to like almost like keep it away from like, well, I know God desires this for me, and I know that he doesn't want me to do this, but like, what about this? And so you're kind of like testing the limits in a way. And like in reality, like when this is your line of disobedience, you should be this far. Like, you should be bringing yourself further and further away so that you're actually exercising and strengthening self-control. Like, that's something that we should want. And it just creates more pure desires in our heart and leads us away from the temptation to begin with.
Yeah, I have a couple things with that part. Let's do the same kind of thought process for like drinking alcohol. How much can I drink before I'm technically drunk? And let's say you get up right next to that line. when you have that much to drink, it's really easy just to have a little bit more and go over that line. So I think you take that into dating relationships. All right, let me get really, really close, and it's going to be very challenging to not cross that line. I think the other thing that we have to think about is it sexual? Because that's really like the Lord's heart is my heart desiring something I can't have yet? Is it sexual in nature? And a majority of what we see in romantic relationships is sexual, right? Like a majority of the stuff that we see on movies, that you read in books, a majority of it is sexual. And so I think when it comes to physical stuff within dating relationships, I think a lot is not on the table. I do think it's very limited. And honestly, that really is for the protection of your heart. All right, like we've talked before that, depending on what you do in relationships, when I think it clouds your vision and how that relationship goes. So I think a lot of people are in relationships they shouldn't be in, but the sex is good, so they just keep doing it. They stay in that relationship because they just can't see past that. And then when a relationship does tear and you had a certain physical intimacy, it makes that breakup much more challenging from what we see. It's like putting two pieces of Velcro together and you're just tearing it apart. It really hurts. So I do think you have to think through purpose and what, it goes back to the root. Purpose in dating is what I'm being asked of. Is it sexual in nature? And I think a lot of stuff is in romantic relationships. And yeah, like why the Lord has something so good for us. That's where we should want to be. Not like as close over here as I can. I want to sit right here with the Lord, and I know whatever he has for me is good and it's going to be great. And so I should be thinking with my partner, how can Jesus, kind of the how far is too far? Well, that means you're going away from something. So I'm going away from Jesus with this person. So I think the question is, how close can I get to Jesus with this person?
That's good.
What should we talk about next? I feel like there's so much to talk about this. We should probably do a couple parts of this. This is good. So yeah, I think, and as we wrap it up here, I think a lot of people should think through a lot. I think you should totally think through a lot. Yourself, the person you're interested. I think there should be a lot of thinking, lots of praying, lots of seeking wisdom from the Lord, seeking wisdom from leaders, friends. I think when we don't do that, that's when we get ourselves in trouble, because I think a lot of people can speak truth into our life. The Lord can speak truth into our life. I think when it comes to dating, I think a lot of us just don't think. And I think that hurts a lot of people.